Hi and welcome to this short video on substituting into formulae. You'll notice that the questions in the examples on this page and the ones I'll ask you to have a go at as independent practice have real life context, which makes it slightly more challenging. Okay, so let's get started. The first question is labelled I do, so I'll be going through this first question with you, which you'll notice is from the progress check itself. The question is, the cost of hiring a car can be worked out using this rule. The cost is equal to £90 plus 50p per mile. Bill hires a car and drives 80 miles. A, work out the cost. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to substitute that 80 miles into my formula because that's how far Bill had drove. So that'll mean that the cost is equal to that £90 flat fee plus, and I'm going to write 50p just in terms of pounds, so 0.50, and then multiply that by 80 for the 80 miles travelled. Now I need to work out how much I had to pay for those 80 miles that I drove. So on the side I'm going to say that 50p was equal to 1 mile, and if I double that I'll work out that 2 miles would have cost me £1. Now I need to scale that up to 80. How do you get from 2 to 80 miles? You times by 40. And so if I do that on the other side as well, I'll find out that travelling those 80 miles added an extra cost of £40. So I'm going to substitute that in, and therefore just to work out Bill's final bill or cost, I'll add those two values together and the cost £130. Moving on to part B then, if Bill hired the car for another journey and paid £200, how many miles did he travel? I now need to work backwards through the formula. So I'm just going to change colour. This time we know the cost is 200. There was that flat fee of £90 and we paid 50p per mile that we travel. I don't know how many miles I travelled, so I'm going to label that M. Okay, so working backwards then, or trying to solve the equation as you would with any other typical solving equations question. I've got this 90. If I subtract 90 from both sides, I'll be left with £110 on the left equals, the 90 will have cancelled out on the right, so £110 was equal to 50p times by the number of miles I travelled. Now, in order to work out the number of miles, I can see that the 50p is multiplying by that, so the opposite is dividing by 50p. So I'm going to divide both sides now by 50p, which will cancel out the 0.5 on the right. I've got to do 110 divided by 0.5. That doesn't look that friendly, but it's much easier than you think. So what I'm asking here is how many 50p's fit into £110. Now we wrote this line of work in earlier that £1 equaled 2 miles. So for every pound you get double the amount of miles. So I'll do the same here. If for every pound that I spent I actually travelled 2 miles, I actually need to do 110 times by 2, and that will give me 220 miles. Again, I'll just explain the reason for that. There are two 50p's that make up £1. So if for every hole in 110 I can fit two 50p's, it must mean that I've travelled double the amount of miles than I paid. So 220 miles is the answer in this case. Okay, so the question underneath is the one that I would like you to have a go at. On your action sheet, on the box on the left, I would like you to write the question out, followed by having a go at answering it with all of your workings present. I'll read you the question before you do that. So it says, the amount of medicine shown in millilitres to give a child can be worked out using the formula S equals AM over 150. S is the amount of medicine in millilitres, A is the adult dose in millilitres, M is the age of the child in months. So if a child is 20 months old and an adult dose is 45 millilitres, work out the amount of medicine the child should be given. Pause the tape now to have a go. Well done for having a go at that question. I'm quickly going to go through the answer so that you can check your workings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that formula, S equals, however A this time is the adult dose, which we know is 45 millilitres, and I need to multiply that by M, which is the age of the child in months. We know the child was 20 months, so I'm going to times that by 20, and then I'm going to write divided by 150. Now, when you multiply by 20, you can multiply by 2 and then multiply by 10. So if I multiply 45 by 2, I get 90, and if I then add a 0 on the end or multiply by 10, I get 900. So what I'm trying to work out is how many 150s go into 900. I can make that calculation a little bit easier by crossing off a 0 from the numerator and the denominator, or by dividing by 10. So now what I need to actually work out is how many 15s go into 90. Now you can just write this out, so 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, and then count how many that was. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so the answer that a child should be taking is 6 millilitres when the adult dose is 45 millilitres. And that's the answer to that question. If you did get that right, could you please just mark it with your green pen on your action sheet, which should be in that first box. Now that you've watched me have a go at one that I do, and you've practiced one yourself as a we do and got feedback for it, I'm now going to ask you to have a go at some independent practice. So as you can see, there are 3 questions on the screen, one about a hotel, one about speed, distance, time, and one about the formula to find the volume of a cone. I would like you to pause the tape, write each of these examples or each of these questions onto your action sheet and complete them showing all of your workings. Pause the tape now and have a go. Well done for having a go at those questions. Your action sheet is nearly complete. You should have one worked example in the left box, followed by you having a go at those questions that I just gave you. On the screen now you'll see the answers. I'm going to ask you to mark them and give yourself a score as a fraction first out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So out of 7. Then if you could change that into a percentage, so how many did you get right out of 7 multiplied by 100, you can add that percentage to your action sheet. If you're not happy with your score and you got a few questions wrong, please use this time within the progress check therapy session to ask your teacher why.